My name is Russell Breyer, and on January 10th, 2021, I died. Not for long. Maybe 6 or 7 minutes, according to the paramedics. But in that short span of time, somewhere between my last heartbeat and their frantic hands pressing into my chest, I experienced something that shattered everything I thought I knew about life, death, and the weight of unforgiven love. And I saw her. Her name was June. 50 years had passed since the last time I'd heard her voice. 50 years of silence. 50 years of shame. But when I died, she was the first face I saw. I hadn't thought about her in years. Not in a real way. Life is a strange way of burying pain in layers, so deep you forget what it used to feel like. I remarried, had a son, bought a small house in Ohio, worked a quiet job repairing upright pianos for schools and churches. I didn't live loud. I just existed. But some ghosts don't haunt you with sound. They haunt you with absence. June and I had met in the summer of 1968. We were both young, burned out by the world, but hungry for something real. I was 23, working construction, and renting a garage apartment on the edge of Minneapolis. She was 19, waitressing nights and writing poetry she never let anyone read. She had this laugh that didn't match her face, loud and unfiltered, and eyes like coffee on a winter morning, warm, familiar. She made me believe in something I'd never known how to name. For a while, we were everything. Late-night dancing in parking lots, scrambled eggs on a hot plate, letters written on napkins when we couldn't find paper. But I ruined it. I don't even remember what started the downward spiral. Maybe it was fear. Maybe it was my pride. Maybe it was that silent war we both carried inside ourselves, the unspoken belief that we weren't really worthy of being loved. I got mean, withdrawn, cold. I broke promises. She cried in the dark, and one day she left. No screaming, no slamming doors, just a folded note on the kitchen counter, and her shoes gone from the entryway. I never saw her again. Over the years, I convinced myself it had just not worked out. I never remarried until much later. My second marriage was quieter, stable, but the kind of stable that doesn't heal what you never faced. I never told my wife about June. Not fully. Not about the guilt. Not about the way I'd wake some nights in a cold sweat, with the echo of her name stuck in my throat. And then, in 2021, my heart gave out. I was eating alone, just a bowl of cereal and a rerun on the television. It wasn't dramatic. I felt dizzy, then short of breath, my vision blurred, and I remember reaching for the kitchen counter before everything dropped. They told me later it was a sudden arrhythmia, an electrical storm in the heart, they called it. But in that moment, all I knew was darkness, not the terrifying kind, just absence, silence, like the lights had been turned off, but I was still somehow aware. Then came the light. It started like a flicker, far off, soft and golden, not like the fluorescent glow of hospital rooms. This was alive, warm, like sunrise through your grandmother's lace curtains. As it grew closer, I felt the weight in my chest start to lift, decades of tightness dissolving like fog under the sun. I realized I was no longer my body. I was above it, floating, not flying, just gently moving. I could see myself lie on the tile floor, one hand outstretched. The cereal bowl shattered beside me. A paramedic leaned over me, his face tense, defibrillator pads already being pressed against my chest. Another was shouting, "We've got VFib charging." I wasn't afraid. I felt peace, not just the absence of fear, but the presence of something stronger, something more true than anything I'd ever felt on earth. And then I saw her. She was standing in the light, not as I'd last seen her, not with tear-streaked cheeks and a suitcase at the door. She looked radiant, not youthful exactly, but whole, like she had become who she was always meant to be. "June," I whispered. She smiled, and I broke. All the years fell off me in that instant. The distance, the denial, the layers of hardness I'd built around my heart to survive the weight of regret. It all came crashing down. I began to sob. "I'm sorry," I said. "I should have called. I should have fought for you. I should have been a man who deserved you." She reached for me, not physically, but with something deeper. Her presence wrapped around me like music. And then she spoke. "I forgive you." 3 words. That's all it took. 50 years of guilt and grief gone. Not buried, not ignored, healed. She looked at me with the kind of love that isn't earned, only given. The kind of love that has no use for scorekeeping or bitterness. The kind of love I had long ago decided I was unworthy of. And then I realized something even more profound. She hadn't come from herself. She hadn't appeared by her own will. She had been sent. I turned around, and there, behind her, was the light, not impersonal, not abstract. It was him, Jesus. No introduction was needed. Just like when I saw June, I knew. My soul recognized his presence even before my mind caught up. He didn't scowl. He didn't question me. He didn't list my failures. He just looked into me like he'd always known me. All of me, the version of me at 19, wide-eyed and clumsy in love. The version at 45, hiding behind silence and repair jobs. The version on that kitchen floor, heart failing under the weight of time. And then Jesus spoke. His words were fewer than I expected, but they were truth in its purest form. This is what grace looks like. I didn't need a sermon. I didn't need to be reminded of what I'd done. I didn't need to relive my regrets. I needed to receive it. I looked back at June, and for the first time in 50 years, I didn't feel unworthy of her love. I just felt grateful. And yet, even in that peace, I could feel something shifting. I wasn't meant to stay. Jesus' eyes met mine again. I understood without words. I had been given a gift, a glimpse of grace, a taste of forgiveness. But there was more to do. Back there, on the other side, I looked at June. She smiled again. Go. And then the light began to dim. When I came back, the first thing I felt was cold. The hospital room was quiet, sterile, humming with machines. My chest ached like someone had punched straight through it, which, according to the doctor, wasn't far from the truth. They'd shocked me back twice. My ribs were bruised from CPR. A nurse was adjusting my floor when I opened my eyes, and she gasped, almost dropping her clipboard. "Mr. Breyer," she said, "you're back." But part of me wasn't. I couldn't speak for a while. My throat was raw from the oxygen tube, and my body felt like it had been dragged back from another universe, which, in a way, it had. I could hear people around me, nurses, techs, voices on radios, but all felt distant, like someone else's life, because I had just seen her, June, alive, glowing, forgiving, and now she was gone again. The weight of that hit me in waves. Not panic, not terror, just grief. The kind that rolls deep in your chest and settles in your bones like rain that won't stop falling. I was alive, but I wasn't the same man who died on that kitchen floor. I stared at the ceiling tiles, blinking against the fluorescent lights, trying to hold on to the clarity I'd felt in that other place. The peace, the presence of Jesus, her voice saying, "I forgive you." I'd never felt so loved, so known, so completely seen. And now I was back in a room full of machines, bruises, and regrets. It took 2 days before I could sit up on my own. My son, Mark, flew in from Boston. He stood at the edge of the bed, trying to smile like everything was okay. But I could see the questions in his eyes. I could feel the emotional distance between us. Not cruel, just built over time, grown from 1,000 small silences. "Dad," he said, "you scared the hell out of us." I managed a weak laugh. I scare myself too. He sat next to me, hands folded tightly. "Do you remember anything?" I nodded slowly. "I remember everything." I didn't tell him everything. Not yet. Not about June. Not about Jesus. Not about the way I had wept like a child in the presence of forgiveness. But I could see the hesitation in his posture, the awkwardness, the space between a father and son who had never truly spoken from the heart. And in that silence, I realized I had another chance now. I wasn't going to waste it. The second night in the hospital, I asked the nurse for a journal. She looked surprised. "You want to write?" I nodded. "There's a lot I need to say." That night, I wrote for hours, my hand shaking, tears dripping onto the page. I wrote about June, about the mistakes I'd made, about the silence that had swallowed our love, about the look in her eyes when she said, "I forgive you." But mostly, I wrote about Jesus, not in poetic phrases or polished theology, just the truth, the real, raw, undeniable reality of the love that met me when I was unworthy. The love that saw my entire life, my failures, my cowardice, and embraced me anyway. The love that sent June to meet me not with anger, but with grace. It changed me. By the time I was discharged, I didn't just want to recover. I wanted to make everything right. I called my ex-wife, Karen, the woman I'd married after June. We had divorced over a decade ago. The damage wasn't all mine, but I had never really owned my part. I just walked away and numbed the shame with busy hands and lonely weekends. When she picked up, she sounded surprised. "Russell, are you okay?" "No," I said, "but I'm getting there." I told her I was sorry for my distance, for the way I'd shut her out, for the pride that kept me from being the man she deserved. She didn't say much, but her voice cracked, and that was enough. Then I called people I hadn't spoken to in years, an old army friend I'd ghosted, a brother I'd grown cold toward, even a neighbor I'd once shouted at over a lawn dispute. Each time I spoke the same words. I was wrong. I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? Sometimes they said yes. Sometimes they just went quiet. But each time I felt lighter, as if the soul had muscles, and mine was finally learning how to stretch again. One afternoon, back home in my little Ohio house, I found the old wooden box that had followed me from apartment to apartment for 40 years. Inside were papers, pictures, and letters I had buried in hopes of forgetting. Near the bottom, I found a black and white photo of June. She was standing under a tree, wearing that old denim jacket, a cup of coffee in her hand. Her hair was wind-blown, and she was half laughing, mid-sentence, mid-life, mid-love. I held the picture against my heart and whispered, "Thank you," because she didn't have to forgive me. She could have looked away in the afterlife, refused to meet my eyes, let the coldness I had sown return to me 100-fold. But she didn't. She forgave me, because that's what grace looks like. It made me wonder, how many people are walking through life with apologies that were never spoken? How many reunions are possible, not in the next life, but in this one? If someone would just make the first move, what if forgiveness wasn't a final act? What if it was the beginning of freedom? The more I thought about it, the more I realized this wasn't just about me and June. This was about everyone who's ever carried guilt too heavy to speak aloud. Everyone who's ever walked away and told themselves it didn't matter. Everyone who secretly longed to be forgiven, but didn't know how to ask. If you're one of those people, I need you to hear me. It's not too late. I never planned to talk about it publicly. Sharing something like this, dying, seeing your ex-wife in the afterlife, being forgiven by someone you hadn't spoken to in 50 years. It felt too intimate, too strange, like a secret between me, June, and Jesus that no one else would understand. But grace doesn't like to stay quiet. It has this way of echoing, of knocking softly until you open the door. The first time I told anyone outside my family, it was at a men's group meeting at a small church on the edge of town. Nothing fancy, just 12 guys in folding chairs and a pot of lukewarm coffee. Most of them didn't even know my last name. They knew me as Russ, the widower who used to fix organs and piano pedals. That night, something stirred in me. Not pressure, permission. The group leader asked if anyone had a story to share about forgiveness. My chest tightened. My palms started to sweat. And then I spoke. "I died last year," I said. "I saw her. My first wife, June. I hadn't seen her in 50 years. She forgave me." Silence. Every eye on me. So I kept going. I told them about the light, about the way I floated, about the presence of Jesus standing just behind her, like a loving reminder that this moment of grace wasn't random. It was orchestrated, designed, timed, sacred. I told them what she said. "I forgive you." A man named Elliot broke first. 60, with a beard the color of concrete. arms crossed like a guard dog. He leaned forward and whispered, "My brother died 2 years ago. We hadn't spoken in over a decade. I said some things I can't take back." His voice cracked. "What if I never get that chance?" I looked him in the eye and said, "You may not get from him, but you can still be made whole. And maybe, just maybe, he already forgave you. Maybe God is still giving you that moment. Through people, through this." Another man, younger, maybe late 20s, confessed he hadn't spoken to his father since his wedding. "It's stupid," he muttered, "but it's like neither of us wants to go first." I told him, "You don't need them to deserve forgiveness. You just need to be willing to give it." That night changed me. I thought my experience was personal, a mercy visit from the other side for a tired old man. But it wasn't. It was a seed. And seeds are meant to be sown. I started writing again, more intentionally this time. Short journal entries, letters. Eventually, someone at the church offered to help me put it online. "This story matters," she said. "People need to hear it." So we did. We posted it. Nothing flashy. Just me in a flannel shirt, sitting at my kitchen table, speaking softly into a camera. I thought maybe a few hundred people would watch. Maybe a handful would care. But within days, emails started pouring in. A woman in Nebraska wrote, "My sister and I haven't spoken in 24 years. I thought it was too late, but your story broke me. I called her today. We cried for an hour." A man in the UK said, "My father died before I could say I was sorry. But after watching your video, I went outside, looked up at the sky, and whispered anyway. I believe he heard me." A teenage girl from Michigan wrote, "I've hated my mom for as long as I can remember, but after seeing your video, I told her I loved her for the first time in 5 years. I wept. Every story, each one a mini resurrection, not of bodies, but of hope. And I began to understand. Forgiveness isn't just an emotion. It's a miracle. Every time we choose it, choose grace over pride, vulnerability over silence, we invite heaven into earth. And that's what I'd seen in that glowing space. Not just June, not just Jesus. I'd seen heaven breaking into the wreckage of human failure. I'd seen what happens when time, pain, and ego are swallowed by love. That love is still available now to all of us. One afternoon, a man named Trevor called. He'd seen the video and wanted to meet. We sat across from each other at a diner booth. He was 34, tattooed arms, rough around the edges. "I walked out on my wife last year," he said. "We had a baby. I panicked. I didn't think I could do it." He took a shaky breath. "I don't deserve to be forgiven." I leaned forward. "Neither did I." He looked down. "So what do I do?" "Start by telling her the truth," I said, "and then ask for what you don't deserve." He blinked. "What if she doesn't forgive me?" "Then you'll know you tried. And even if she can't yet, God already has." He exhaled, eyes moist. Before he left, I gave him my phone number. "Call me," I said, "no matter what happens." 2 days later, he texted. "She let me see the baby." I held him for the first time. I don't know what comes next, but I feel alive again. That's the thing about forgiveness. It doesn't erase the past, but it unlocks the future. It doesn't always lead to reconciliation, but it always leads to restoration. Because forgiveness isn't saying, you didn't hurt me. It's saying, you don't have to carry this anymore. I'm setting us both free. And that's what Jesus did. For June. For me. And now. For every person who's hearing this story. Some days I still wake up thinking it was all a dream. That I didn't really die on my kitchen floor. That I didn't float above my body. That I didn't see June standing in that light, whole and radiant, her eyes full of love and her voice saying, I forgive you. But then I feel the scar across my chest from the paddles. I see the stack of letters I've written since, the calls I've made, the silence I've broken. I read the messages from strangers who saw the video and said, that story saved my marriage. That story brought me back to Jesus. And I know it happened not just for me, but for you. You, reading or listening right now. You, who've carried that name in your chest for years, the one you never made peace with. You, who lie awake at night, remembering the words you said or didn't say. You, who think it's too late to call, too late to change, too late to forgive. Let me tell you something I now know with more certainty than I know my own name. It's not too late. Not for you. Not for them. Not for the apology you thought would never matter. Not for the healing you're afraid to believe in. Because grace doesn't expire. It doesn't run out at a certain age or after a certain number of failures. It shows up sometimes at the last second, sometimes after death. When I stood in the presence of Jesus, I didn't bring anything impressive. I brought a life full of small compromises, unspoken apologies, moments I should have fought for love, but didn't. And he met me anyway, not with scolding, not with silence, but with mercy. He let me see June again, not to punish me, but to redeem me. And her forgiveness changed everything. There was no contract. No, you have to earn this. Just a quiet voice saying, I forgive you. And in that moment, the chains I had lived with for 50 years fell off. Not because I fixed it, but because grace finished what I could not. Now, let me say this as clearly as I can. If you're alive, there's still time to fix what's broken. But it starts with a choice, not a feeling, not a perfect moment, just a choice to pick up the phone, to send the message, to show up, to say what's been buried for too long. I'm sorry. I forgive you. Please forgive me. I still love you. I never stop praying for you. I don't want to leave this life without making peace. You don't need to have the right words. You just need a willing heart. And if they're gone, if the one you need to forgive is no longer here, then speak out loud anyway. Write it in a letter. Release it in prayer. Ask Jesus to carry it beyond time. Because I'm telling you, he can. He did it for me. He met me on the edge of eternity with a grace so heavy and soft it broke me open. And then he sent me back, not so I could sit in silence, but so I could look you in the eyes and say, don't wait. Don't wait until the funeral. Don't wait until they're gone. Don't wait until you feel like it. Don't wait until you think you're worthy. Start now. Speak now. Love now. Forgive now. Because the only thing worse than regret is regret that never had the chance to turn into redemption. And if you're thinking, but they don't deserve it, remember, neither did I. But grace isn't about deserving. It's about freedom. And I promise you, on the other side of that phone call, that letter, that knock on the door, is peace. It may not be perfect. It may not end in a hug or a handshake, but it will break something in you that needed breaking. Because bitterness isn't strength, pride isn't protection, and silence isn't safety. The only thing that truly heals is grace. And grace has a name, Jesus. If you're reading or watching this right now, and you know there's someone you need to forgive, or someone you need forgiveness from, don't let this moment pass. Drop a comment below. Right? I forgive them. I'm ready to say I'm sorry. It's not too late for me. Jesus, help me forgive. Or, if you don't know what to say, just write grace. Let it be your first step. Let it be your declaration. Let it be the start of a healing you never thought was possible. Because I'm telling you, the other side of that healing, it's brighter than anything you can imagine. I'm Russell Breyer. I died on January 10th, 2021. And I came back with one message. Forgive while you still can. Love while you still have time. And trust the one who gives second chances, even after the final breath.